So for more on the conversation between Republicans happening down there at the retreat, let's bring in Congresswoman Debbie Lesko. She represents Arizona's 8th Congressional District and joins us on the phone right now. Congresswoman, great to have you with us.
It's great to be with you.
Tell me, what is the chatter like in Orlando right now?
Well, we're discussing a lot of issues about what's important to Republicans, and one of the big issues is actually on crime and reducing crime because, as you know, throughout the entire country, crime rates are going up, and it's all a result of some of these DAs, these liberal DAs, and Democrats' policies that are soft on crime. They just have a different way of thinking, and it's backfiring on them, and Republicans want our nation to be safe. They want our communities to be safe. So that's one of the things we're discussing.
Yes, I bet. What about the fact that it looks like the 45th president of the United States is going to be arrested tomorrow in Manhattan, at least according to him, and it'll be done at the behest of this local prosecutor, the Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who is mounting a case that legal experts on both the left and right say really doesn't have a leg to stand on. What do you make of that?
Well, I was on the Judiciary Committee during Trump's first impeachment, and I saw firsthand how the Democrats set him up, basically. They set him up with this whole Russian collusion thing. They went, it was just totally irresponsible. They didn't have a leg to stand on to impeach him, but they went ahead and did it anyway, no matter if it was right or wrong. And, of course, I believed it was wrong, but they just can't stand President Trump, and they will do anything and everything to discredit him. The thing that they haven't seemed to figure out yet is that I think President Trump is right. It probably will help him when they continue to go after him. They haven't quite figured that out yet. I mean, for goodness sakes, the FEC didn't go after Trump on this whole issue. Another judge on a she sued and they didn't take it up. And so now this guy, years later, who instead of going after actual criminals is going to go after President Trump. It's not surprising to me. It's disappointing. But these people never give up. They never give up.
Do you worry about how destabilizing this is? People start to lose faith in their justice system if they watch the people who control the levers of power use that power against their political opponents without an actual basis for doing it.
Oh, Americans have definitely lost trust in the Department of Justice, the FBI, these DAs, when they see unequal justice going on, when there's riots and all kinds of things in cities and they're, smashing glass on federal buildings, and our Democrats and Biden don't say a darn thing about it, hardly at all. And yet, now we're going after Trump again. It's like ridiculous. And they're not even prosecuting the people that are going after pro-life. You got these people attacking pro-lifers. It's a sad state of affairs. And again, this is a huge issue that Republicans are talking about at our conference, is we need to regain the trust of the American people. And that's why we're doing all these investigations, because we need to start telling the truth, whether that's on Department of Justice, whether it's the CDC, whether it's Dr. Fauci and the whole COVID thing. And no matter what it is, we need to tell the truth to the American public to regain their trust.
So as you're having these conversations at this Republican retreat, what do you think is going to be exposed next? A lot of people are watching really closely the investigations into the abuses by our government against the people, the weaponization of government. We're also watching with a lot of attention the investigations into the Biden family business deals, which obviously look like they've been enriching themselves using their access to taxpayer resources. What do you expect to come out next?
Well, I don't know what's going to come up next, but we're going to continue to hold the Biden administration accountable. But while we're doing that, that's not all we're doing. We're discussing about all of our legislative priorities. We've already passed several pieces of legislation through the U.S. House of Representatives, and we're discussing about how we need to push back on Biden and the Democrats' radical government spending. They're just out of control government spending. We don't even have the money to spend. They just keep increasing debt, and more debt. And Biden's budget plan, just spends more money. It's totally irresponsible. So Republicans plan to come up with a budget, and that's more responsible, and we're going to use it as leverage when we talk about the debt ceiling vote. The other thing that we're talking about is securing the border. I mean, we have to do that for national security, but also for humanitarian reasons, but also for this is costing us tons of money. Not only our hospitals, schools, but it's costing Americans millions, billions of dollars. You can't sustain a country when millions and millions of people are crossing our border all the time. It's just not sustainable.
The White House is out today accusing the House Freedom Caucus of being extremists and suggesting that the House Freedom Caucus suggested budget proposal would endanger police, public safety, and border security. Boy, that's quite a statement coming from this White House. What do you make of that?
Well, it's not surprising. You know what's endangering public safety is his budget proposal, because it just keeps spending money. There's no end in sight. And pretty soon, our interest payment, our yearly interest payment on our national debt is going to exceed the entire budget for the Department of Defense. Now, that is scary. That is a national security risk if we're spending more on debt than we are on the entire Department of Defense. I mean, government's number one job is to protect its citizens, and now you're going to spend more on this debt than you do on the entire defending our country. That's radical. Mm-hmm. That's very radical.
Yeah, and I'm amazed by the fact that in his border proposal, he wants to process more foreign nationals into the country while giving less money to actual border barriers and protections to keep people out in the first place.
I know. And then he has the gall to say this is his border security plan. It is not a border security plan. It's like, let's keep the border open plan. Plus, let's add more people legally every month to come into our border. All he's doing is increasing the amount of people that are legally coming in, plus all the other people that are down the border. He's incentivizing more people. I mean, we have people from 165 different countries crossing our border. It's just, we don't even know who the people are. And now they've stopped vetting. They don't even vet the adults that they send these unaccompanied children to. They found that some of these places that are taking unaccompanied children have like dozens of kids. You don't know if these people are who they are. They could be sex predators. Mm-hmm. This is just awful. It's awful what's going on. That's why Republicans are pushing back. We already passed great legislation like defunding the 87,000 IRS agents and doing other things, but we're soon going to have border security legislation. We're going to have energy independence legislation that's coming up very soon. Yeah. My bill is actually inserted in one of those in H.R. 1, and so I'm happy about that. We're pushing forward, and we're going to put pressure on the Senate Democrats and Joe Biden.
One of the interesting features so far of the Republican-run House is how much success Republicans have had in actually achieving bipartisan legislation. This doesn't really get much attention in the press, but I want to give it some. You have the Republicans successfully getting through both the House and the Senate an effort to overturn the weakening of D.C.'s criminal code. There's that. You also have Republicans working to pass through both in the House and the Senate an effort to ban TikTok from the United States. We await to see what Joe Biden does with that. And then today, Joe Biden actually vetoed a piece of legislation that would have prevented the government from using Americans' retirement plans in order to pursue a leftist environmental agenda. That passed through both the House and the Senate. Biden just issued the first veto of his presidency. It's kind of an amazing story how much legislation is making it through both houses led by Republicans.
It is. I mean, we're doing bipartisan things, and, Biden doesn't care. He just vetoes this whole thing, which actually puts risks on Americans' retirement account, because instead of looking at just profitability of a company and if this is a good investment, now you have these, woke retirement managers that, according, under Biden's pushing, are saying, no, let's consider these environmental, social governance issues instead of looking at the profitability of the company. This is bad. I mean, I'm telling you that these meetings that we're having here are very eye-opening, and it just shows what the state of our country is in, whether it's militarily, whether it's open border, whether it's a crisis of cost of living crisis and how people can't afford things. There's a homeless crisis.
Yes.
And Republicans really are trying to turn the ship around, right? But it's hard when you got a president that vetoes things that are bipartisan.
Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, last thing, the banking crisis is one other piece to this. We've watched as it started, it kind of tipped the dominoes with Silicon Valley Bank's failure, a bank where most of the depositors were very rich people. Many of them Democrat Party donors, many of them in the green energy industry. The government stepped in immediately to save them, despite the fact that they far exceeded their FDIC insurance limits within that bank. But I can't help but notice that the Biden administration went weeks before it even acknowledged the plight of East Palestine, Ohio, and the toxic train disaster there. Is this a part of the conversation among Republicans in Orlando right now?
Yes, it is. This is a big discussion. We're talking about the banking system because we're not out of the woods yet. I mean, I guess I understand why the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury and the FDIC stepped in a couple weekends. Was it last weekend? And we're like, okay, we're afraid that there's going to be a bank run on more banks, so we're going to make these depositors whole. But quite frankly, I'm getting sick of bailing out people that make bad decisions. The bank was run poorly, and we're talking about Silicon Valley Bank now. It was run poorly. They didn't invest well. And then the regulator didn't regulate the bank. They didn't have the protections. And so when Elizabeth Warren goes around and say, oh, we need more regulations, they didn't even follow the regulations we have now.
Yes.
So, what is more regulations going to do? Nothing. It's just going to hurt the good actors.
I noticed.
It's going to hurt all the other banks.
I've noticed this at every level of government. It's always this way. Some disaster occurs, and then the government actually had knowledge in advance and didn't act on it. And then they say, well, the only answer is more power to the government. No, we've tried that quite a bit, and it's failed a lot. Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, really appreciate you giving us some on-the-ground perspective on what's happening in Orlando at the Republican retreat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too. Good to talk to you. It's